Welcome to another episode of Life Coach Reviews Movies, and today we have Lady Bird, uh, recommended to us by Francis. Lady Bird is a 2017 movie, and it's one of my favorite genres because I love coming of age films. I love Wallflower. I love Superbad. I love all. Is it Superbad? The one with Jonah Hill and Michael Cera. I love that. I just love those kind of like coming of age films, and so I happen to have watched this movie, so I want to talk about it. So Lady Bird is sort of a different from all the other coming of age films I mentioned because it's I think rare for a film coming of age film to feature a girl from a very kind of a female perspective, and I think that is why it's sort of worth mentioning in today's video. So the first kind of a big topic that I want to talk about, especially related to Lady Bird, is teens getting really angsty. So in this movie, it is continuously demonstrated that Lady Bird is just not happy with her name, with her boyfriend, with her hair, with her college choices. Everything is just so not right, not satisfactory. Everything seems so not cool. Everything is so just bleh. And I'm sure this is kind of a universal experience for all the teenagers out there. I remember being very angsty when I was a teenager too. But now, um, this angsty energy kind of feeds off of a dynamic with Lady Bird's mom. And what's interesting about this dynamic is, in general, the mom and Lady Bird are kind of cool. They don't always fight. So in most cases, they're kind of amicable, but there are some moments when the spark is just like, and then things just escalate up to 100 super quick. And Lady Bird is generally rebellious, right? And generally very strong willed, but when that spark is on, the hierarchy suddenly just flips. And I think this is such a strong characteristic for a mother daughter relationship, which is what we're going to cover as a second topic. But to cover the angst portion of it first, why are teenagers so angsty in general? Why don't kind of preteens age into more mellow version of themselves? Why do teens mostly get discontent with everything? And I believe it's because life is kind of, when you're a preteen and even before then, your life, the boundaries of your life, what you can do and what you cannot do is largely defined by your parents. And not only is it defined, it is also reinforced by your parents. So when you do things that your parents want you to do, you get heavily praised. When you don't do the things that your parents want you to do, or even worse, when you do things that your parents don't want you to do, then you get heavily criticized. And now, when you're young, you don't really have a personality yet. You don't really have a preference. You don't really have what you call your life yet. But preteen teen is when you start forming this identity as a person, and now you start to have your individuality. You start to have your likes and your dislikes. And as those kind of pop up, you're, of course, now if you think about it from your parents' perspective, your parents, to them, you are always their child. So more or less they have the same expectation of you as you grow, because they have watched you grow. They have cleaned your diapers because when you couldn't like pee and poop correctly, and then they fed you, and then they just watch you every day. So of course, from their perspective, they expect you to more or less remain static. But that's not what you go through in your life as a teenager. So it is highly likely that as you change, your parents will have an overreaction to your change because they are confused and they are kind of flustered as well. And that will feed off in your energy with your identity, and now two identities will clash. Am I going to be my parents' child, or am I going to be my own person? And when that clashes, at teenagers' age, they don't really have the mental kind of groundedness to resolve this in a more peaceful way. So if you are a teenager watching this, then I think one of the really good important skills for you to pick up outside of your school studies and outside of skills like making money and things like that is how to get in touch with your emotions and resolve them in a peaceful way instead of exploding. And because exploding and hating things, it'll just make your life more miserable. And the early on you catch this, and the early on you see the point, the early on you stop seeing the point of being angry, in general, the less suffering you will have in your life. The second kind of a prominent theme in Lady Bird is, as I mentioned earlier, the relationship between mom and you, right? And so I'm a guy, and I sort of see the I can relate to Lady Bird, but obviously there are dimensions of the mom and me relationship that you get as a daughter that's going to be different from the son's perspective. But mom and me tend to be a really mixed bag, especially when you are a teenager, because, well, I should say, by mom, I mean your primary caretaker. It can be your dad if your dad is your primary caretaker. But um, your primary caretaker is most likely a human who, again, doesn't really know how to deal with their individual suffering, right? So when they look at you, the child, it's highly likely that they see a reflection of themselves. So when the parent has regrets about their life, when the parent has remorses about their life, they usually know what part of their personality, what part of their identity, what part of their personhood contributes to that. And so, when the parent sees those qualities in their child, they are more likely to push hard to change that personality. And it is for good reason, right? Because they can kind of predict what kind of life they will live if they do not change their personality. They will become basically them. So, parents generally have a tendency to try and shame their personality in the child's life. But at the same time, the child and the mother used to be one. Now I'm specifically talking about the mother, like biological mother. So there is an infinite amount of love that stems from being a mom, being a primary caretaker. But at the same time, there is a lot of self-shame around their individual remorse, and to kind of impart that onto your child, it also comes with the difficult, like distinct sense of guilt. So in this movie, I think I can spoil it because the movie's been out for a fairly long time. When it is revealed that Lady Bird is going to go to college in a remote location, the mom just stops talking to her for the entire summer after senior graduation. And so at the time of watching this movie, I thought that was a little bit harsh because I wasn't really into coaching at the time. But I can see that from my perspective now, having worked with so many different people across so many different age groups, them being children, them being parents and everything, I can see how from mom's perspective, Lady Bird's decision to go to the liberal arts college in the East Coast is kind of like the only thing that she worked so hard to prevent. And here my daughter, my love of my life, is basically giving me a giant middle finger. And that is the mixed bag. That is the mixed bag tragedy of the relationship between mom and the daughter, or in general, the primary caretaker and the child. So that's the second point I wanted to make about this video. And the third is, in the movie, Lady Bird at the end goes to the East Coast, goes to a party, hooks up with a dude, gets totally wasted, and then goes to the ER. And then suddenly has this kind of like reckoning, and like and a big kind of awakening moment. And then she calls her mom, and the mom doesn't pick up, and she leaves a lengthy voice message expressing her gratitude for mom and everything that she did. So the movie kind of ends on a good note. Hey, this is a good ending. But realistically, I believe this movie is kind of a bad ending because of karma. Nothing fundamentally addressed the karma between the mom and Lady Bird. So what will most likely happen is they will have a few moments and a few months of good times. And then they will not talk about the decision to college because they don't want to ruin that good time that they have, that period of peace that came from a cold war of like 3 months. And so that resentment and that kind of inner frustration is going to build up. And the next time when inevitably mom gets triggered or Lady Bird gets triggered, because again, most people don't know how to regulate their emotions and don't know how to process emotions like in a non-explosive way, and it'll just be like high school over again. And this sounds like very depressing, but at the same time, number one, that's the realistic outcome of this because again, nothing fundamentally addressed why mom behaves this way. There's no deep understanding that happened. No, from mom's side, there's no deep understanding of why Ladybird did this. And so, because nothing fundamentally did anything to the actual relationship underneath, the karma has no reason to change. It just has new fuel. It just has this new food to continue its cycle. And so, Lady Bird will kind of continue this relationship and this kind of life. And, you know, if I'm projecting a little bit, in the future, she will just live her life exactly how mom did. And she will have kids, and she will go through the same experience that her mom did, and that is how usually life works. And that is karma. But now, are you all doomed? No, that's not what I'm trying to say. That what I'm trying to say is this is why it's so important to understand the role of karma in your life. You have to be opening your eyes to what is a karma problem and what is not a karma problem. What is like my adult life thing or what is my karma thing? What is this thing that I inherited from my parents? And when you have that perspective, you can make conscious decisions on what am I going to do with this problem called karma. Okay, that is my review of the movie Lady Bird from 2017, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.